Deep in the ancient Vedic texts, there is an avatar who defies the typical image of a holy man. He steps out of the dense forest, wrapped in animal skins, firmly gripping a heavy metal axe in his hands. Tradition says this warrior, Parashurama, wiped out the Earth's corrupt ruling class 21 times in a row. He repeated the same campaign until the repetition itself became the central mystery of his life. The roots of this behavior reach back to his parents. His father, Jamadagni, was a Brahmin sage committed to unbroken meditation. His mother, Renuka, was a princess from a clan of fierce warriors. He was born at the intersection of these two worlds. From his father, he inherited a capacity for silence. From his mother, an instinct for decisive, devastating action. Long before he ever faced an enemy, Parashurama carried these two conflicting identities. He was a man made of competing baselines, waiting for a catalyst to tip the balance. This diagram illustrates the mechanism of epigenetic inheritance. Science shows environmental triggers leave chemical markers on the genetic code. Ancestral experiences of survival or fear can transmit behavioral tendencies to future generations without changing the underlying DNA. Long before the study of epigenetics, the annual ritual of Mahalaya provided a space for thousands to gather at the riverbanks and address their lineage. By holding these grass stalks, participants perform an intentional ritual of release, acknowledging their ancestors' emotional burdens to avoid playing them out in their lives. These ancient rituals functioned as humanity's early frameworks for addressing the biological reality of inherited trauma. For Parashurama, the trigger was a clear act of corruption. An arrogant ruler named King Kartavirya visited his family's hermitage and seized their sacred cow, Kamadhenu, by force. The violence peaked when the king's sons invaded the hermitage. The sage remained in deep meditation, refusing to resist even as they murdered him. Seeing a parent killed while refusing to defend themselves shatters a child's sense of safety. For Parashurama, this injustice forced his latent warrior instincts to the surface. He took up a divine axe, tracked down the killers, and executed them. He successfully restored order to the hermitage, but the internal impact of the event remained. While the external threat was gone, the act of vengeance provided no relief for the loss he had experienced. This is where the narrative shifts from justice to obsession. Even after the original killers were dead, Parashurama found himself unable to stop the fight. He spent decades circling the earth, seeking out every member of the warrior class. The texts describe him filling lakes with blood, repeating the same act of destruction until it became his only mode of existence. This maps a repetition compulsion. An injustice leads to an action that fails to resolve the underlying grief, demanding endless repetition. His life became a loop of violence. The more he fought, the further he moved from stillness, leading to total emotional exhaustion. When the original wound remains unaddressed, the warrior strikes long after the enemy has disappeared. This cycle finally met its limit when Parashurama challenged Lord Rama. Here stood another warrior, but one whose strength was paired with an absolute, unshakable inner peace. Driven by unresolved pain, we project our internal chaos onto others, viewing every encounter as a battle. Rama refused to reflect that chaos. Facing this stillness, Parashurama's projection collapsed. He saw himself as he truly was, without the justification of the acts. He began to observe his anger as a passing phenomenon, rather than his identity. In that moment of observation, he found the space to choose a different path. He realized that the war he had been fighting across the earth was actually a war against his own internal nature. To conclude his campaign, Parashurama performed a final, decisive action. He laid down the axe and stepped aside. He withdrew to the Mahendra Mountains, trading the rhythm of battle for a state of profound silence. His legacy was the birth of martial arts like kalarippayattu, where physical strength is strictly governed by mental discipline. The energy that once fueled external conquest was redirected inward toward the stabilization of his own mind. Victory arrived when he recognized the cycle for what it was, let the axe fall to the ground, and chose peace over the habit of war.